Have you ever looked at your alarm in the morning and felt a strange kind of exhaustion that had nothing to do with sleep? Not because you were lazy, not because you hated work, but because deep down, you were tired of knowing that every dollar you needed still depended on showing up again tomorrow. That feeling is more common than most people admit. Millions of people are not just tired. They are financially trapped in a routine so familiar that they stop questioning it. Wake up, work, pay bills, recover, repeat, then do it again next week. And the most dangerous part is not the routine itself. The most dangerous part is how normal it starts to feel. People tell themselves they will save more later, invest later, learn later, get serious later. But later is one of the most expensive words in personal finance, because every year you delay does not just cost you 1 year. It also costs you compounding, flexibility, and options you can never fully get back. So in this video, I want to walk you through a simple 5-year framework that can completely change your financial direction if you follow it with consistency. Not a lottery fantasy, not a get-rich-quick story, not a magical stock pick that turns a few $100s into a mansion. I am talking about a realistic wealth-building pattern that starts slowly, feels boring in the beginning, and then becomes powerful because of time, discipline, and momentum. I call it the 2-3-5 path. 2 years to build the base, 3 more years to create visible acceleration. And by year 5, if you stay consistent, you stop feeling like you are pushing every dollar uphill by hand. That is when your money starts carrying more of the load. Now let me be clear before we go further. This does not mean every person watching will literally retire in exactly 5 years. That depends on your age, your expenses, your savings rate, your debt, your health costs, and where you live. But what 5 focused years can do is far more powerful than most people realize. It can cut years off your retirement timeline. It can build real investment momentum. It can move you from financial anxiety to financial control. And for many people, that shift is the first time retirement stops feeling like a fantasy and starts feeling like a destination. Most people never experience this because they quit too early. They start saving. They check the balance. It barely moves. They invest for a few months. Then the market drops and they panic. Or life gets expensive. Or motivation fades. Or they convince themselves the amounts are too small to matter. So they stop before the engine ever has a chance to turn over. That is why understanding the timing of wealth matters so much. In the beginning, progress looks unimpressive. It feels like effort without reward. You sacrifice restaurant meals, impulse purchases, random subscriptions, and convenience spending. You transfer money into savings or investments, and nothing dramatic seems to happen. You might feel more disciplined, but you do not feel richer. And because the emotional reward is so small at first, many people assume the strategy is broken. It is not broken. It is simply early. Think of someone named Daniel. He is 46 years old, earns a decent middle-income salary, and always assumed he would get serious about retirement someday. He has a retirement account through work, a checking account that rarely stays above a comfort level, and a habit of telling himself that next year will be the year he finally gets organized. Then one day he actually does the math. He realizes that if he keeps spending the same way and saving inconsistently, he will work far longer than he wants. Not because he failed, not because he is irresponsible, but because he drifted. So Daniel makes one decision. For the next 5 years, he will stop drifting. That decision changes everything, but not immediately. The first 2 years are where almost all the invisible work happens. This is the phase most people underestimate because it does not look impressive from the outside. But this is where financial freedom is either built or abandoned. In those first 2 years, the goal is not to look wealthy. The goal is to create a system. That means automating savings so the money moves before you can second guess it. It means reducing high-interest debt that silently drains your future. It means building a small emergency reserve so a car repair or medical bill does not destroy your progress. It means understanding where your money actually goes instead of guessing. It means finally making adult decisions with adult numbers. For some people, this is the first time they track monthly spending honestly. And that moment can be uncomfortable because a lot of people do not have an income problem first. They have a clarity problem. They do not realize how much disappears into convenience, delivery fees, streaming services, subscription renewals, small upgrades, frequent takeout, unplanned shopping. Financial leaks are dangerous because they rarely feel dramatic individually, but together they can quietly steal the entire future. Imagine a woman named Marissa. She is not reckless with money. She does not buy yachts or luxury watches. But when she finally reviews her spending, she finds hundreds of dollars each month vanishing into habits she barely notices. Coffee runs, app charges, last-minute purchases, extras she tells herself she deserves because she works hard. And maybe she does deserve some comfort. But what she realizes is that comfort is costing her freedom. So she does not try to become extreme. She simply becomes intentional. She cuts what does not matter. She automates what does matter. She stops making money decisions emotionally. She starts making them strategically. At first, it feels almost disappointing. She is doing the right things, but the results are small. Her retirement balance grows, but not enough to impress anyone. Her emergency fund builds, but it still looks modest. Her debt shrinks, but slowly. Nothing about these early months would make a flashy social media post. And that is exactly why most people miss the power of this stage. Year 1 and year 2 are not about applause. They are about wiring your life so wealth becomes more likely by default. That means fewer decisions made in weakness, fewer financial emergencies, fewer panic withdrawals, fewer months where you start over from zero. This is also the stage where identity begins to change. At first, you feel like someone trying to save money. Then you become someone who does save money. That shift sounds small, but it is everything. Because once your habits stop depending on mood, progress stops depending on motivation. Now here is the part most people do not expect. Those first 2 years often feel the slowest, but they are creating something much more valuable than just a bigger balance. They are creating financial traction, and traction changes the emotional experience of money. When you have no traction, every setback feels final. When you have some traction, setbacks still hurt, but they do not erase you. That difference matters more than people think. Because the reason many people fail financially is not that they never knew what to do. It is that they could not stay consistent long enough to let simple actions become meaningful results. That is why the first phase matters so much. Not because it makes you rich right away, but because it transforms chaos into control. Then something begins to shift. This is where the next 3 years become powerful. By year 3, your system is no longer brand new. It has survived birthdays, inflation, unexpected expenses, market volatility, and moments of self-doubt. You have proof now. Maybe not proof that you are finished, but proof that you are no longer who you were. This is the acceleration phase. This is when a lot of people finally see that the boring work was not wasted. Their balances begin to move in a more visible way. Their debt burden is smaller. Their emergency fund makes them less fragile. Their investing contributions start adding up. And perhaps most important of all, they stop feeling financially helpless. That emotional change is enormous. When you feel helpless, every financial headline controls your mood. A market drop terrifies you. A recession rumor shakes you. A big purchase feels threatening. You live in a constant low-grade anxiety because you know you do not have much margin. But when you enter the acceleration phase, margin begins to appear. You have cash reserves. You have a plan. You know what comes in, what goes out, and where the difference goes. That is not just budgeting. That is power. Let us go back to Daniel. By the time Daniel reaches year 3, he has paid off one major debt, built several months of emergency savings, increased his workplace retirement contribution, and opened a simple investment account for additional long-term growth. None of this happened overnight, but now he notices something that used to feel impossible. His money is growing even in months when he is not thinking about it every day. That is a huge turning point, because the beginning of wealth is not when you first earn money. The beginning of wealth is when money starts moving in your favor, even while you are busy living your life. This is also the stage where people start realizing that small increases matter more than they thought. An extra $100 a month, then another $50, then another automatic increase after a raise. These changes do not feel life-changing in the moment, but stacked over years, they begin to build a serious difference. Think about someone investing $500 a month versus $700 a month. The gap does not look dramatic in 1 month. But across years, especially when growth compounds, that extra $200 starts behaving like a silent employee. It keeps showing up, keeps working, and keeps building without asking for attention. And this is where many people who stay the course get their first real taste of financial confidence. Not fantasy, not arrogance, confidence. They realize they do not need a perfect life to make progress. They do not need to predict the market. They do not need to become obsessed with every financial trend online. They just need a durable strategy and the patience to let it breathe. Now, this phase is also dangerous in a different way, because once progress becomes visible, temptation returns. You may feel smarter than you are. You may think the system is working so well that you can start taking shortcuts. You may want to chase high-risk trades, pull money out for lifestyle upgrades, or reward yourself too aggressively because you finally feel ahead. That is where many people injure their own future. The acceleration phase works because it still depends on discipline. The game is not over. In many ways, this is where the game gets more serious because now there is something real to protect. Marissa faces this too. Around year 4, her accounts look stronger than ever before. For the first time in her adult life, she has genuine breathing room. She starts thinking maybe she deserves a newer car, a nicer apartment, more spending because after all, she's been so responsible. And maybe some upgrades are reasonable. But what saves her is that she asks a better question. Will this purchase improve my life for a moment or improve my freedom for years? That question protects more futures than people realize. Because wealth building often fails not in the beginning, but in the middle, when results start becoming visible and people become impatient in a different direction. They stop because they want to enjoy the harvest before it is finished growing. If you can resist that urge, the final part of this 5-year framework becomes much more exciting. By year 5, the emotional experience of money often changes again. You are still not invincible. You are still not beyond risk, but you are no longer trying to push a dead financial engine uphill. This is the stage where compounding begins to feel real, not in a theoretical way, not in a textbook way, in a personal way. You look at an account and realize the growth is no longer coming only from your own contributions. Your previous effort is now generating new progress. Your earlier discipline is finally paying you back. This is why year 5 feels different. For years you planted, then for a while you protected. Now you begin to witness multiplication. That does not mean every month is perfect. Markets will still move. Unexpected bills will still exist. Life will still interrupt your plans. But by now, your financial life has structure, and structure changes outcomes. Daniel sees this when he compares his current situation to the version of himself from 5 years earlier. Back then, one bad month could throw him off for an entire season. Now he has savings, investments, lower debt, and far more clarity. Back then, retirement felt like a vague word people used in commercials. Now he can estimate what he needs, what he has, and what additional years of consistency could realistically do. That is one of the biggest gifts of focused financial effort. It turns mystery into math. And math is powerful because it removes fear built from vagueness. When people say retirement is impossible, many times what they really mean is they have never broken it into numbers they trust. How much do you spend each year? What income might you have from Social Security later? What would part-time work cover if you chose to scale back before stopping completely? How much would lower debt change your monthly needs? How much would a smaller home, a different city, or reduced lifestyle inflation affect the target? These are not small questions. They are the questions that turn wishful thinking into planning. By year 5, people who stay focused begin asking those questions with confidence instead of fear. And that is why this framework matters so much. It is not just about reaching a number. It is about becoming the kind of person who can actually manage freedom when it arrives. Because there is another truth many people ignore. A lot of people say they want retirement, but what they really want is relief. They want space. They want dignity. They want the option to say no. They want to stop feeling like one employer, one emergency, or one bad year could break everything. That kind of freedom rarely appears all at once. It is built piece by piece, habit by habit, decision by decision. And the biggest tragedy is that most people are closer than they think, but they never stay with the plan long enough to find out. They give up in year 1 because progress feels tiny. They get distracted in year 2 because life gets noisy. They get greedy in year 3 because they want speed. They get careless in year 4 because they finally feel safe. And then they never get to experience year 5 the way it was meant to work. So let me say this as clearly as possible. The worst mistake is not starting small. The worst mistake is quitting during the small stage. Because the small stage is where the future is being built. Nobody gets excited about foundations when they look at a beautiful house. But without the foundation, the house never stands. Wealth works the same way. The invisible early years often matter more than the visible later ones. And yes, some people watching this are thinking, this sounds fine, but my numbers are not big enough. That thought stops more progress than low income ever does. Do bigger numbers help? Of course they do. But the habit of using what you do have with precision matters more than people realize. A household that consistently directs 8%, 10%, or 15% of income with intention can build real momentum over time, especially if they keep increasing that rate gradually as income rises. Not perfectly, gradually. That is how normal people create extraordinary outcomes. Not through one heroic decision, through repeated ordinary decisions that do not look impressive until one day they suddenly do. So if you are wondering what to do after hearing all of this, start here. Stop waiting for the perfect month. Stop telling yourself you need more motivation first. Stop assuming your early progress should feel dramatic. Instead, build the base. Learn your real spending. Cut what does not matter. Automate what does. Build your emergency cushion. Reduce the debt that punishes your future. Increase your investing steadily. Protect the plan when emotions get loud. And most of all, stay in the game long enough for the game to change. Because if you can give yourself 2 honest years of structure, then 3 more years of disciplined acceleration, the person you become at the end of that 5-year stretch may not just have a bigger balance. You may have something even more valuable. You may have options, and options change everything. Options let you reduce work before you are burned out. Options let you handle emergencies without panic. Options let you ignore fear-driven headlines. Options let you make life decisions from strength instead of desperation. That is what most people really mean when they say they want to retire early. They want to stop living financially cornered. So no, 5 years will not turn every viewer into an instant retiree. But 5 focused years can absolutely change the slope of your entire life. It can move you from confusion to clarity, from reaction to strategy, from paycheck dependence to growing independence, from hoping things improve to building improvement on purpose. And that shift is bigger than it sounds, because once you know how to build momentum, you stop seeing money as something that only disappears. You start seeing it as something that can be organized, directed, protected, and multiplied. That realization is where real confidence begins. So the question is not whether wealth building works. The question is whether you will stay with it long enough to feel it working. Most people never do. That is why so many remain stuck. But if you are willing to treat the next 5 years differently, more intentionally, more honestly, and more consistently, then you may look back one day and realize that the point where your future changed was not a lucky break, a giant raise, or a perfect market rally. It was the moment you finally stopped drifting and started building. And once that happens, the morning alarm does not sound the same anymore. It may still ring. You may still go to work. You may still be in the middle of the journey. But something inside you changes, because now you know you are not trapped in an endless cycle. You are on a path, a real one, a measurable one, a path that gets stronger with every month you refuse to quit. That is the power of 5 focused years. Not magic, not hype, not fantasy, just time, discipline, patience, and a system strong enough to carry you farther than emotion ever could. And for many people, that is where financial freedom actually begins.